Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Avenue A, where we talk acting, networking, and the industry. Happy Friday. It's episode 13 here on the show, and if you haven't joined us before and you're new to the show, welcome. Super happy to have you. I'm your host, Kelsey Bentz. And a little bit about the show for those of you who might be new. I created Avenue A as a platform during quarantine to stay connected with my fellow actors and with other artists in my community who are near and far. And it's all virtual, which is really fun and new for a lot of us. So thanks for being here. Today I have a really exciting guest on. Her name is JOCELYN Seid, and she is a Portland artist. She's a playwright, an actor, a director, and she's worked in theaters all over town. So I'm really excited to have her on the show today. So just a little more about Josie before I bring her on. Like I said, she's a playwright based in Portland, Oregon. Josie is a proud member of the Lionstorm Playwrights Collective, and is the author of Petite Dames, which was nominated for the Kilroy List in 2015 and was recently workshopped at Lewis and Clark's Ray Warren Symposium on Race and Revolutionary Struggle. Other works include Path of Glory, The Great God of the Dark Storm Cloud, Jordan's Wisdom, Overdue, Stand By Me, and this is message number 13. As a writer, she approaches stories with a multifaceted lens due to the privilege of assuming many different hats in the world of theater. At one time or another, she's been an actor, a director, and a costumer for the stage. She's directed plays at many theaters throughout Portland, including the world premiere of the play A Dark Sky Full of Stars by Don Zolidis at Theater Vertigo. On her writing, she says, I try to be or represent that other voice, to share that view or story that gets brushed under the rug. For if we cannot make the world a better place, then what's the point? So I'm super excited to have on Josie today. Please welcome her. Hey, Josie.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Thank you.
It's so nice to have you on. And Josie and I were just talking backstage about how obviously this is virtual and we're not in the same location, but her and I are actually both in Beaverton right now, which is kind of fun. We're like very close to each other, despite being far away.
Yeah.
Love that. Hey, Michelle, thanks for stopping in.
I love you, Michelle.
So, Josie, you are an artist that's worked all over Portland in many different roles, and you've worn many different hats, and I think that that's so fantastic, and I'm excited to pick your brain today a little bit about your artistic definition, like what art means to you. So part of your artistic mission is to make the world clearer and more understanding through your writing. So what artistic or personal practices do you employ to do that through the art that you create?
Yeah, such a great question. I am a watcher of people. And I think I have the privilege of seeing people just in many different kind of ways and platforms, like most of us, right, in Portland. I've got a day job, and my day job deals with people. I'm in recruiting in the HR department, and I have a whole nother, kind of type of people that I'm looking at in my day job. But I think it brings a really nice, real tangible nature to the characters that I create, both in writing and becoming, right? Something else that I do, and this is actually it's in both realms, when I'm writing and acting, is that I just listen, girl. Sometimes when I'm writing and you're forcing the words, and I'm like, let me stop. This is somebody's story, and I will just breathe, and I will maybe put on a piece of music that I think that character might like, and I just listen. And quite often they say, oh yeah, no, that's not what happened, this is what happened. you know I tell directors that I work with, to bear with me, because I can be a director's nightmare, just because you're not going to see that full person probably until a week or two before we have an audience. And it's because I'm building them in my body, and I'm listening to them, right? And I'm listening for them. Do
Right.
you want to hear a fun little story about
Yes,
an
please.
experience I had? So I was doing a show. It's a theater group that's no longer together, but we were doing To Kill a Mockingbird. And it was like 7 of us doing like all 24 characters, right? And one of the characters that I was playing was Mr. Gilmer. I don't know if you know Mr. Gilmer, but he's the prosecuting attorney. So he's like this racist white dude, right? I
Right.
played him. Josie Seed was playing him. And in rehearsal, I'm sitting there, and I'm in, and this was probably, it's probably a couple days before we have an audience, and I'm sitting in my man pants, and I got him pulled up, and I'm leaning on my arm, and I hear him. I'm like, I am losing my mind, because it's nothing that I would ever say, but he was like calling Tom Robinson all kind of things that wasn't his name. He just kind of peeked up over the top of my brain, and it kind of freaked me out. But it's like, now that's what I look for, right? Because he was taking over, and that's what you want. Like, you want to come up with truth. So I feel like when you're still enough, you can hear them. So yeah, that's that's some practices I have.
That's really fascinating, and I like the concept of listening. Even though the character is someone that you're playing, it's almost like you have to tap into yourself so much that you sort of put yourself aside and make room for the character to come through. Does
Yeah.
that resonate
Yeah.
with you?
Oh yeah, and that's a life skill, mama, right? That's a life skill. I mean,
Yeah.
wouldn't the world be a better place if we just made a little bit of room inside for other people?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Are there any things that you do in your personal life to sort of foster that practice so that you can bring it into the rehearsal room?
Yeah, I think it's a practice. I love that you put it that way, but I really do try to do things that make me uncomfortable. I do things that I don't do on a regular basis, watch things, listen to things, right? Read
Yeah.
things that are outside of, where my comfort zone is, who I'm comfortable being. Um, yeah, because it causes you to, then spend time with that work, and to say, I wonder where they're coming from. Because most people aren't bad to the core. Something happened, right?
Right. Right.
That puts them one word, good to the core, even, right? So where are they in their lives that put them in that place? And that's the practice. I'm looking for that thing right there, because that's what's going to make somebody look at you and not say, I can see you acting as hard as you can, right?
Right.
Or it's going
Right.
to stop your writing from feeling really contrived. How many of us hate, raise your hands if you're listening, how many of us hate watching something and being like, I know they just did that because they had this plot thing down the road that they had to make work, and so she's calling up that ex-boyfriend when the whole thing has been about her not wanting to be bothered with him. you know so I think if we spend more time, once again, listening and paying attention, we don't have to do those contrivances.
I like that a lot. I'm wondering, as a writer, as a playwright, is it difficult for you to write dialogue for characters who you feel are very different from yourself?
Such a good question. Um, I don't know. I don't know because I go to that place. You know what I mean? Because I'm like,
Yeah.
what would they do in this situation? You know, and why would they do it? You know, I think I start with the motivation. I don't start with the action. I start with the motivation and that whole, glorious anchor of what do they want. Um, so I don't know if I'd say it's hard. Sometimes I write stuff and I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You know better than that, and then you go back and you're like, yeah, I get it. That's why you did that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's that same thing of being able to stand on the outside, just like you're watching something and be like, no, don't open the door. The killer's right behind it, you know,
Classic.
and we can see, but they can't, I think that's
Yeah.
probably the hardest thing.
So I like that what you said about accessing the motivation and like behind the what they're actually doing is the why, and
Yeah.
and that's I think where the empathy comes in.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so fascinating. So as a multi hyphenate artist, what are 2 to 3 things that you've learned along the way that have been universal to all of your work?
Yeah. I think it takes us back to that everybody has a why. Everybody has a why. When I'm writing, when I'm acting, when I'm directing, especially when you're working with actors that are like struggling with a role or an action that that a character has, and
Yeah.
helping them to unlock that why, right? Is like gold. It's gold. And sometimes you do it and sometimes you don't. Like even myself as an actor, when I haven't unlocked the why, I've had to just, barrel through and say my lines and make my lip tremble when it's supposed to.
Right. Yeah.
But when you can unlock that why, yeah, pennies from heaven.
Right.
Yeah,
And it's so hard. I mean, the why is the hardest part, but it's also the most rewarding, I
yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So did you learn about, like you said, the why like early on in your career, because you've had a very long artistic career. So is that something that you've brought with you like for years, or when did you really like adopt that?
yeah. Such a good question. I don't know when it unfolded. It's really interesting because I am not like a trained actor, right? Like I haven't gone to anybody's college to do anything. All the acting I've ever done, I've just learned how to do it.
Wow.
But there was a point in my life that I was like, I asked myself, I'm like, I can't get there. And then it just started to unfold like, well, what's going on here? Why are they doing this? You know what I mean? Like what happened in the past 5 minutes ago, you know what I mean, that is causing this person to behave that way. And it's funny, Kelsey, because then it just spilled over into my life, like at work, day job, right?
Yeah.
People at work are used to me. I was like, we got to drill down into the whys because it's seldom just one. It's usually at least five, right?
Right.
Um, and so I think it's just something that's like a part of me. Um, and it might be different for other people. I think I would say with any artist, with any actor, um, we all have um, different things that anchor us. I call them retention triggers. We have different things that make things stick to our brain.
Yeah.
Um, and for me it's the why, but for somebody else, it might be physical. You know what I mean? When I stand a certain way and breathe a certain way and fill my body with the air, the heavens open and they come into my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody has their own thing. I would never be the person to say this is the technique that you will use that will unlock magic for you every single time, because that's not, we're all unique humans,
Right.
and so my unique thing is the why. So I would say for other people, you find your unique thing.
Yeah. I'm wondering, because you said a little earlier that sometimes it's really hard to find the why. And like
Mhm.
in certain scenes, and I've definitely experienced this too, in certain scenes, I'm like, I literally, until closing night, I have no idea
Yeah,
about why this character is doing this.
yeah.
So is there like another way that you try to access the why? Like another, if you can't find it your normal way, like how do you get there?
Yeah, you know what I would tell you with all honesty and humility, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you
Yeah.
find out after, you know what I mean? And that's when you tap into your technique, right? That's when you,
Yeah.
like I said, okay, I'm about to tell you a secret that's everybody's gonna know. I can't cry on cue. It's not a thing. Um, and it's because Josie can't. Does I'm not a crier. Never have been.
Mm. Hmm.
But what I am fantastic at doing is doing that thing that you do to your face. It makes it look like you're about to cry. And then I turn up stage and you know, you employ your technique.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, as long as you can make people think that you're doing it, people don't have to
Yeah.
see the tears. All they have to see is the pain.
Mm.
And I can make you see pain. That I can
Yeah.
do, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So, you get as far as you can on the journey and then you keep trying. There was one show that I was in that I was like, man, it would be awesome if I could cry during this part. I never did, but I would sit on that porch and what I would just try to summon those tears, be acting my ass off. And people would say, "Oh gosh, that part was so moving. Oh my goodness." And I'm like, "Good, that's good enough." If one day a tear would have dropped, it would have been all the more. But I stole nothing from them by tapping into the technique.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's incredible. And especially, I mean, crying on cue is such a, controversial topic in the
Yeah,
theater, I think, because some people are like, oh, you have to be able to do it, otherwise you're not a real actor. And some
yeah,
people are like, why would I have to do that? That's
right.
ridiculous. And I think it's so cool the way that you're saying that it's more about feeling the pain of the moment than it
Yeah,
is producing the tears,
yeah, yeah.
right? Because tears are a byproduct of the experience.
Yep,
And like you said, not everybody responds to their experience with tears,
right,
and
right.
that's not the only valid way to express your pain, even
Exactly,
as a character.
exactly.
Yeah. And so it can still be just as effective, if not more, if you're really just focusing on tapping into the painful experience of the character rather than like, oh my gosh, I have to cry right now.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good reminder. Because it is, everyone has a different opinion about that. And I've been in rooms with directors where they're like, cry. And I'm like, what? Where?
Right? You're gonna get some tears after I'm done laughing so hard.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, so
That's
funny.
cool.
But I have like mad respect. Like I worked with this one actor, she's amazing, and we were talking about, some scene. This was for film, and she was auditioning. And she's like, well, this seems very painful and blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Explanation. She goes, would you think she'd cry? I was like, she'd do what you make her do. She was like, hold on a second, let me get ready. She turned around, counted to 5, turned around. She was holding these tears in her tear ducts, like they were on some kind of a pulley system. They were just sitting there. She's like, okay, I'm ready. And she said her lines, and those things started falling. I was like, see that? You get it, girl. You go. You
You
fit
get
that
it. That's a
mold,
special skill. Put
right?
that
You
shit on the
put that
resume.
in your pocket. And love, mad love. But the
Yeah.
pain was there. You know what I mean? When she turned
Mm.
around, I saw the tears, absolutely. But I also saw the pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So transitioning a little bit, I'm wondering, how has a failure or maybe apparent failure set
Mhm.
you up for later success? And do you have a favorite failure of yours?
Oh, that's a question. It's so funny because I saw that question. I was like, "Ooh, I can't even deal with that right now. I don't know what the answer to that question is." You know what? I think it's not. I don't know if I would call it a failure. What I would call it is, so most of my life, um, I have been kind of the quiet, invisible person.
Mm.
When I was young, I was bullied, man. I was this tiny little peanut and I was super shy and I wasn't the most attractive child. Um, and to myself, right?
Sure.
And so I spent a lot of time shrinking, and making myself very small. And then I came into, there was a point, maybe it was college, I started to come out of myself. And Kelsey, I think I was just tired. Because it takes effort to make yourself something that you're not. And
Yeah.
I'm not this. I mean, not that I don't know if I'd say I was shy, but I'm introverted, right? But to make yourself invisible because you don't want to be seen, because you don't want to be um, pursued, right? For the cause of predatory things,
Right.
that causes some fatigue, and I was just tired and weary. And so, in high school, I mean, not high school, but in college, I'm coming out. Here I am, and uh, I would say that the failure was trying to shrink myself, right?
Hmm.
And be something that I wasn't, because I was afraid to fail. I was afraid to try. I was afraid to shine. Um, and so I got to the point now where it's like I still don't like to try stuff in front of people. Like in
Yeah.
classes, I'm either the first person or close to the last person. Because I'm either, let's just
Me
get this out of
too.
the way when I get my courage together, or I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, let me figure out how I can do this by watching everybody else. Um, but I've got to this place where I can analyze that fear and say, girl, what's going on? We are in this class. Let's talk about classes. We're in this class because don't know, but none of us know how to do this, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes brilliance comes from your mistakes. I have this phrase that I use at work. I say, fearlessly fail.
Hmm.
Because how many glorious things do we have because somebody just effed something up, right?
Right.
Um, we got penicillin because somebody, left that orange in the refrigerator too long.
And rubber tires.
Come on. Yeah.
Random.
Yes. Yes. So I think my failure was fear of failing. Right.
Hmm.
And now I fail fearlessly, and I can mess some stuff up. Hide and watch.
Well, we all can, and I think like failure is such a scary concept
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
our culture. I guess it's American culture,
Yeah.
that we're all, I think, raised to be anti-failure.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
do everything right,
Yep.
otherwise you're no good.
Yep.
But I heard a story that like really changed my perspective on failure, and it was I forget who was telling it, but essentially it was this woman, and she was explaining about her childhood and how every night at the dinner table her dad would ask the kids, "So what did you guys fail at today?"
That's
And
beautiful.
then everyone would, share the things that they tried to do and that they failed. And it was like the opposite of like they flipped failure on its head, essentially.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
Because failure is always for me as well. Like I've really resonated with what you're talking about with being an introvert, and especially being in acting classes and
Yeah.
thinking like, okay, I either have to go first so that I'm not like compared to anyone,
Yep.
or I'm going to go last because I can't figure out how to do it right now. And it's
Yep.
just all this is happening, the whole time. But at the end of the day, you're right. Like, what's going to happen?
Nothing
Nothing's
is
going to
gonna,
happen.
nothing is, no. It's funny because I say the best way to disarm that fear is to just breathe into it and speak it. Be like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't, I don't know how to do this. Let me give it a try. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden you go from being that person who is like stiff and is painful and awkward. Those people that you see that's so painful to watch because you know that you feel for them and you're like, oh, baby, just breathe. To like, you put that in the room and then all of a sudden everybody becomes your ally, and you can feel the support of people who want you to be successful, right?
Yeah.
You have control over that. So, and it's not like I'm not the master, but I'm every day I'm like, okay, step in there, mama, give it a go, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that kind of ties back to what you were saying earlier about how you seek out things that make you feel uncomfortable.
yeah,
Does that sort of help with, I mean, it's sort of like practice, like it's
yeah,
conditioning yourself to be more comfortable with things that are uncomfortable.
yes, 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 yes. Mm-hmm.
It's hard to do that though on the day to day, you
It
know?
sure is.
I don't know. I mean, I know for me, like, I'm just like at the end of the day, I just want to go home and know exactly, watch something that's really just easy to watch, comfortable. But I know that doesn't stimulate me at all.
It's not going to change you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is my favorite question, and I ask
Uh-oh.
it to all
Don't
my
muck it up,
people.
Josie.
Impossible, impossible. So, who is someone who is not in your current network that you wish was? And then, how would you go about getting that person into your network?
Oh, okay. I thought about this question and it just totally like me. I had to put it down because I need to ask you some clarifying questions.
Sure.
Okay. Do you mean my like current personal, like not personal, but in the world that I can touch with my hands, like the Portland theater scene, or do you just mean in the world?
Why don't we do both?
Okay.
Because
Oh, okay.
it could go either way, but I'm interested that
Yeah.
you have maybe an idea for both.
I don't know if I do for both. Let's talk about the big world, then we'll talk about the Portland world.
All right, sure. I like
Big
that.
world, probably Viola Davis. Oh, she is everything. She is everything. She is so comfortable in her skin. She is so in touch with her roots, and she's good. Oh, she's so, so good.
She's so good.
So good. And I don't know how I'm gonna start thinking about it though. I have no idea how I get my hands on her. Um, but I think, there's that 6 degrees though, right? Um, and you just have to figure out, just start asking, just put it out there.
I know.
Yeah.
And that's why I love this question too, because I think it's always fun to start brainstorming how to reach the people who seem unreachable.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
think at the end of the day, especially this is what quarantine is teaching me, is that now that we're all virtual, people are a lot more accessible
Oh
than I
yeah.
ever
Yeah.
thought. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool in that sense. I mean, there's a lot about these times right now that's just terrible.
Yeah.
But in that regard, I think it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it would start with, I'm thinking about this. See, now you got my wheels on. There's this actor who I have to be really honest in saying that I've never seen any of his stuff, but he knows, I see him with everybody in Hollywood. His name is Eric West. And he followed me on Twitter, I think before he knew that I wasn't anybody. And he was good enough to not unfollow me when he found out I wasn't anybody. So I might start with him. I'd be like, hey, Eric West, can you hook a sister up?
Eric West, if you're watching, Eric
Eric
West.
West,
Well,
send
see,
a
that's
sister a DM,
fantastic. I mean, I think it's all about the DMs, Josie. It's all
right?
about those
Right.
DMs. Hi,
So,
Polly. I love this topic too. It's a good
yay.
topic.
Hi, Polly. I love the name Polly, actually. I had a neighbor who was one of my favorite humans. She was the first Polly I knew personally. So now Polly has such a positive connotation for me.
I love that. The
Um,
Polly that just commented is the only Polly I know, and she also is very positive for me.
See, Pollys are good.
Pollys are good.
Now let's talk about Portland.
Yeah, what
Portland,
about
Portland,
Portland?
Portland.
Because you
Mm,
already know a lot of people. I mean, you are a Portland person.
I kind of am. I
You're
feel
up in
like
there.
I don't want to be that person that's like, oh, that's not a problem for me. But, the thing about Portland is, yeah, I live here. And I'm not scared to just, pick up a phone and, Google somebody.
Yeah,
The big world at large is harder to Google somebody and figure out, how to
yeah.
get in touch with them. Um, yeah, so I don't know. I don't
And
know.
it could be someone, outside of the artistic community as well. I
Yeah,
don't, you know,
yeah. That's another one I'm gonna have to think about.
it's a thinker.
It's a thinker. It's a cogitator. I love that word, cogitate.
Cogitate.
Yeah,
Is that a synonym to like thinking? I don't think
yeah,
I've ever heard that word before.
yeah. It's like a deep thought, turning it over in your mind, working it through. You cogitate on that.
I like it.
It's a good one,
Well,
right?
while you cogitate, you can contact a Viola Davis.
Yes. Come on now. That's where I need to spend my cogitation.
Yeah, right? Oh my gosh, she's so fantastic. That's such a good choice. And
I'm gonna let you
she's
know when I get her. I'm gonna get her.
I hope you do.
Yeah.
And I will be like bowing down.
That
That'll
not
just
to
be an
me.
amazing moment.
Anybody can send an email. You better.
That's true. Not everybody gets a response though, you know.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do. People respond. I've had a couple really quick exchanges with like Neil Gaiman. You know who Neil Gaiman is?
That name is familiar, but I can't place
I
him.
love him. He's a writer. He wrote the movie Coraline. He's the writer of Coraline.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he's got a couple shows out there. And I put a couple things out on Twitter, just doing it, and he responded, and I was like, you need to stop it. So you need to stop because now I think we're friends.
You are. Hello.
Yeah,
That's
I
so
think that man is
fantastic.
brilliant. So yeah, it was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I felt like I had arrived somewhere.
That's so cool. I love that. I like how artists look out for each other,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know? No
yeah,
matter no matter the status, you
yeah.
know? I think that that's really beautiful when artists adopt that
I
principle of
agree.
like really looking out for each other regardless of who the person is.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. That's what this is
Yeah.
all about. That's what you're doing, Kelsey.
That's what I'm doing, and I'm so thankful.
Yes.
You were so quick with your response and your enthusiastic yes to be on the show, and I really appreciate that.
Oh, you stop it. I felt like you make me feel like somebody.
You are,
Oh
and
my gosh, bless you.
you came so highly recommended, and I was
Oh,
like, have Josie on if you know it's good for you. And I was
oh,
like, okay,
that
here we are.
man. You better turn him around and look at his back. There's wings back there. That cat's an angel.
Well, thank you so much for being on. We're just about out of time, but I really appreciate all of the insight that you shared with us.
Ah, thanks for asking. Seriously, this has been just a delight. A delight. I
For me
appreciate
too.
you.
It's a
Yeah.
great way to stop to finish the week.
Yeah, I agree. Because I fought for this. I fought for this time right here. So, and you are my reward, Kelsey. So thank you.
Yay! Thank you. For those of you watching, if you wanna find Josie on Facebook or Instagram, you can. I put her handles here. Her Facebook's under her full name, JOCELYN SEID, and then IG is just at Josie Seed. So follow
Yay.
her because she's fantastic.
I'll see y'all in the box.
In the box. Thanks again, Josie.
Yeah, thank you, my darling. See you
Bye.
later.
Well, that concludes another episode 13, 13 whole weeks of these amazing interviews. I feel so lucky and blessed to have been graced by all of these fantastic artists, including Josie tonight. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.